Ask Mike, brought to you by the Stadium Shop on Razorback in Fayetteville.
Well, hello, everyone. Good to be with you. Alyssa Orange alongside Mike Irwin for Ask Mike. Courtney is on assignment today, so I get to fill in. It's been a while since I have sat in this seat.
Grief?
I always give you grief, whether Ask Mike is on or not. And so I'm excited to be back. Courtney will be back next week. You guys don't hit me in the comments. All right, here we go. Question number one. Our first question is from Jamie Howard, who asks, what surprised you the most about the sweep of A&M?
It had to be John Bolton. If you'd told me he's the key offensive figure in that series, I'm like, are you nuts? I mean, the guy was batting under 200. He's been batting under 200, the whole season. He's a really good shortstop. And they took him out at one point and replaced him, and he was so valuable at shortstop, they just had to make a decision, okay, we'll deal with the fact that he doesn't hit the baseball. Turns out this guy's a really good bunter. In fact, he said, that's what I do. Well, I don't understand why he didn't go into DVH's office and go, hey, I'm a bunter, let me bunt. Every time, I'll just bunt. But he was good. He disrupted them. They got all flummoxed when he bunted. They were like, oh, what do we do now? This guy's weird bunting. I mean, the pitcher's in the way, the first baseman's in the way of the pitcher, and they just get all balled up. And then he's a good base runner, so he ends up over at third base, and then with one out, he comes home on a sac fly. So that was a big part of it. I also think Cody Adcock was a surprise starter to me because remember he'd started that midweek game against Missouri State and didn't do very well. He pitched better earlier in the season. He was kind of on a downer. And then he comes in this game. When I looked and saw he was they're dead. This is your Sunday starter. He went 4 innings and gave up 1 hit. And that going 4 innings instead of 3 turned out to be everything they needed because the next 3 pitchers came up a total of, 7 runs. And if they'd given up 8 runs, would have been a tie game, gone to extra innings, probably lose the game. So Adcock and John Bolton, they were both were surprises.
Yeah, DVH talking at the Swatters Club today, talking about bunting. He said we won with some small balls, so that was fun. I think they doubled the amount of bunts they've done all season in one game. But then also he pointed back to that Ole Miss series where they didn't run a pitch Cody Adcock necessarily. He had transferred from Ole Miss, and I think that kind of messed with his confidence a little bit. He's starting to get it back now, so that's good for this pitching staff. DVH talked about that today for sure. All right, second question. Mousetown says, so I guess the Aggies are getting ready to spend big bucks to get improvements to their baseball stadium. To get some ideas, they sent one of their athletic department suits to Fayetteville so he could check out Baum-Walker. I was told that you used Twitter to post something on that. I can't wait to hear it.
Okay, basically I said what he would discover when he got here. What he did discover was there were almost no Aggies in the stadium. So that's one of the reasons why the atmosphere is so good. So what's he going to do? Are you going to come back and say, well, the best feature about Baum Stadium are the Razorback fans? Well, he can't make them all go to College Station. So they can do whatever they want to their new stadium. They're still going to have Aggies. They're still going to have a stupid bubble machine. Who comes up with a bubble machine in a baseball?
Bubble machine has got to go. They were talking about this at Swatters Club too today, and they're like, making improvements. I was like getting rid of the bubble machine.
Yeah. So, look, here's the thing. If you look, I went and looked up their plans online, and it looks great. I mean, they're going to do the outside of their stadium. It's going to look like a major league park, all brick and way up, and they already had 2 decks. But what they're essentially doing is taking Arkansas's performance center, their locker rooms, their training rooms, their workout facilities, and all the stuff they've got in this new facility they have, and the Aggies are going to say, this is good, now we're going to spend more money. It's going to be bigger and better, because that's what they do. They've always done that. They copy other people's ideas, and they spend more money on it. But guess what? They're still Aggies. No matter how much money they spend, they're still Aggies. They're still recruiting guys that want to be Aggies, and it's always going to be that way, right?
Yeah, you can put lipstick on an Aggie, it's still an Aggie.
Yeah, it's still an Aggie. So you can make this facility as good as you want. Ice Cream Ballpark. I don't know if they're going to change the name of it now, but it's still going to be Aggie fans and playing in front of Aggie fans in front of Aggie players, and it's just what it is.
Yeah, my son had a lot of fun going boo Aggies all weekend.
Well, that's great. I wish I'd been there to see that.
It was fun. All right, Hog Redneck wants to know, what was your reaction to the NFL draft? I was disappointed. Drew Sanders is better than a third-round pick. I'm also surprised that so many ex-Razorbacks went undrafted.
I never pay any attention to the draft, and there's a reason for that. And it's a theory that I've got, and I've noticed it virtually my whole life, which is when you go from one level of competition up to another, there's no telling how you're going to, whether you're going to be better, worse, because I've seen some guys get better as they go to the next level, some guys regress. Started when I was a kid growing up, and we had no Pee Wee football in my hometown. We played football in the streets with no coaches. The two best guys in Pee Wee football when I was a kid, when they got into junior high, they didn't even last the first year. They quit because they were nothing. I don't know what happened. They should have been really good, but they weren't. We had a great junior high quarterback that when we got to the high school level as freshmen, we're on the JV team, he lasted through the two-a-day part and then started the first game, and then he lost his job and he quit football. We had a running back in high school that we were all convinced this guy's going to college, he's going to be an All-American, blah, blah, blah. He got a junior college scholarship. He couldn't even get a 4-year scholarship. He got a junior college scholarship, and they made him an offensive lineman, and he quit before the season was over. So the point is, when you go from one level to the next, there'll always be those guys that just, for whatever reason, they don't advance. Well, look what the NFL draft is. It's just a guessing game. You're saying, this guy was really good in college. Gee, he's going to be really good in the NFL. And sometimes they're right, and sometimes they're not. How do you really make money? There's two ways you make money in the NFL. If you are one of those top draft choices, you're going to sign a good initial contract. So even if you don't make it, you got some money. But if you're those other guys, those undrafted free agents or whatever, the real money is if you make that to the second contract. And look at all the guys that don't last in the 2 year, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and they're gone. Almost all of them. There's just a tiny fraction of those guys that end up 10-year players. So how do you know who they're going to be? Yeah. Sometimes they're All-Americans. How many Heisman Trophy winners end up being great NFL players? Very few, honestly. So to me, the NFL draft is a big guessing game, and people that freak out, oh, you should have gone higher. I mean, you just wait and see, because none of us know.
Yeah, we really.
Jerry Jones certainly doesn't know.
Is this coming from a Cowboys fan?
No, used to be Cowboys fan.
Ex-Cowboy fan.
Jerry ruined me for that. I'm more of a Kansas City Chiefs
I think the biggest, most recent example of guys who were maybe underlooked, not necessarily in the free agency thing, but is Brock Purdy, who was Mr. Irrelevant in last year's draft, and look what he was able to do at San Francisco. So yeah, you just don't know. I'd have loved to see Drew Sanders go higher. I think he was talented, but it also is just what teams need and the layout and.
And if you remember in the interview that he did, he said, nah, what difference does it make? I'm not going to worry about it. Whatever it is, I'll deal with it at the time.
That's just how he's always been. He is, the year that we had him, he has just been like, you know, it is what it is. I just go out there and I play football. Yeah. And we saw his game speak for itself on the field.
That's the best attitude to have.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, making sure I stick. Here we go. Pork Tongue asks, do you think NIL amounts should be shared and shown to the public eye?
Under the current system, yes. Because if a guy's making $1.5 million a year, a quarterback, I think we need to know that. We need to know how much money are schools throwing at some of these guys. So under the current system, I would say yes. If they adopt my system, and I think eventually they will have to, I think it's going to come out of some sort of congressional bill, and you make these athletes part-time employees of the university and you pay them all the same, then it won't matter about whether it's published, because they'll publish the amount and everybody will be making the same. But definitely under the current system, we don't know who's getting what. It's just rumors, you know, and I think we have a right to know how much money you're throwing at somebody.
I love this question. I also think a side question to this is it helpful to show what your athletes are making from a recruiting standpoint. And I use this case in point. LSU basketball just got Haley Van Lith, who transferred over from Louisville, and they now have 4 of the top highest paid female athletes in Division I athletics. And they're gymnast Olivia Dunn and Angel Reese and Haley Van Lith, and then another basketball player. But there's a graphic with the amounts that they're making. Yeah. And so, like, do you think that would help Arkansas if they're like, yo, this is what our football players are making, or our basketball players?
Because I don't know right now for sure what they're paying anybody. But if they made you if they published those, if we could all have access to it, then yeah, it would be. I mean, it's a public university. Why shouldn't we know what they're making?
I think you can find that out. Can't Flagship tell you? You just have to ask, or how does that work?
Maybe, I don't know. I've never tried to find out myself, but I think it's public. I think it should be public. I don't know.
I don't
know if you put it on their website or not.
No, I think you have to inquire.
You know, if you go in the roster and you check a guy and his picture pops up, then you just put a dollar amount there.
Oh my gosh.
That should be the first thing.
Golly, that would be funny. I don't know if we need to go that far. All right, Lost in Swine asks, what do you think about the new rule the SEC is thinking about imposing, which would take away a home game if the fans rush the field?
I don't like any of that, but I like that better than charging them money, making them pay money, because why should the SEC make money off something like that? They're saying this is dangerous, but yet we're going to make money from you if you do it. That was always phony to me. You know, the money they charged Arkansas, I made this point at that Auburn game when everybody just went nuts and charged out onto the court. And the SEC was like, this is horrible. We're charging you $250,000 or whatever. And yet the SEC benefited from it because everybody saw that. This is SEC basketball.
They cut commercials with that video.
Exactly. So they're using it, but they're saying you got to pay us because we have this rule. That's phony.
Yeah.
Now, if you're serious about it, then do this, because if you do that, then nobody's going to rush the court. They're not going to do it. But here's my issue. I want to see some numbers. I want to see some statistics on how many people are hurt on these rushing the court incidents, because I don't think there's any. Years ago, like 12 years ago or whatever, there was one student that fell down in a basketball game and got his arm broken with somebody stomping on his arm, running around. Okay, so one guy in 12 years, is that what it is? If you can show me some statistics that say this is really dangerous, then I'll say, yeah, okay. But I haven't seen any.
Yeah,
so right now, I'm not convinced that they're saving us from some horrible fate by saying you can't do this.
Well, would you take away a home game the following year? Is that how that works?
I guess, yeah.
Interesting. Oh, interesting. Okay, Big Boy wants to know your thoughts on if basketball recruiting on the high school level will be impacted after the exodus of freshmen this year.
Well, I assume he's talking about at Arkansas, and there's already been an impact because of last year, Arkansas, as we know, had 6 freshmen, 3 5-stars and 3 4-stars. Now, how many are they bringing in as of now? 2. 2. Now, I don't know if that's a complete trend, but I'm talking to some people about this, and I think Musselman kind of learned a lesson from this. The fact of the matter is, what you have to do is you have to weigh what's the value of a 5-star one and done, as opposed to a guy that's been playing for 3 years and you bring him in. You may get more out of the guy that was a 4-star, but he's in his 3rd year, than you would the freshman year of a 5-star. Now, I don't think Musselman's going to stop recruiting 5-star guys, but I think you're going to see like 1 of them or 2 of them or 3 of them, not 6 of them. So it will change recruiting.
And I'm curious to see, maybe not necessarily from an athlete point of view, but from a high school coaching point of view, with all due respect, are you burning bridges with the way that some of this is going down, that maybe those relationships get severed a little bit? Is that a possibility?
Well, we got another question on that coming up, but I'll address it when it comes up.
I jumped the gun. I just get so curious.
It is definitely a possibility.
Okay, all right. Well, here we go. Blake Taylor, 1112, says, softball, as I post this, has taken 1 game from number 3 Tennessee, who I think can win the whole Women's College World Series. How far do you think we can go in the postseason? Also, have you heard anything in regards to expanding Bogle, since it is so difficult to get a ticket to any conference games?
I guess what they're asking is this team as good as it was a year ago? And it's not. It's not as good because of all of the newcomers in the lineup, and the real difference, and they showed this graphic on a game the other day, but I went and looked them up to be sure, it's the hitting. They hit 331 as a team last year. This year, right now, as of right now, 297. That's a big drop-off. They hit 109 home runs in 59 games in 2022. So far, it's 59 in 50 games, or a rate of 1.8 home runs per game last year and 1.1 this year. So that's where the difference is. If you look at the ERA, it's better this year than the pitching is better this year than last year. It's 2.18 right now, and it was 2.70. They've got two solid pitchers right now with better ERAs than they had of their top two pitchers last year. So it's not pitching, it's hitting. I think this team is probably at least a year away from what people want, which is go to the Women's Softball World Series. And I don't say that it will happen next year, I don't know, but I think it's coming. But I think you're going to have more experienced guys in your lineup. However, they're starting to develop some. I mean, they don't win that game 2 against Tennessee without hitting. And they had all of those runs, the 6, I think, were scored as a result of a home run. So that's starting to improve a little bit. I think they've got good coaching, and the coaching is bringing these players along. So the good news is this may be a team. I thought they hit a real low spot when they lost that home series to A&M, and they'd had some games before where you were kind of going, what's going on with this team? And then we saw they're not hitting the way they were, but they slowly getting better again. Do I think they're an NCAA playoff team? Yes. Do I think they can host? Yeah, I think maybe they will. I don't see them as a national seed, therefore hosting a super regional if they win their regional. My best guess is they'll host. Not sure they'll win their own region, but they'll host, and I don't think they'll get past the super regional. So that's what happened to them last year, but last year's team was probably better. Yeah, again, this was the #1 recruiting class a year ago for Courtney Deifel. I think you give that freshman class 1 or 2 more years, and this is going to be a top contending team, absolutely. And then real fast, the expansion of Bogle. Okay, the word I get is that the next improvements, and it's probably coming soon, is for the players. Something, I don't know if it would be the same thing, but something along the lines of what the men just got. You know, better locker rooms, training facilities, and all that, something for the players. The attitude right now, I think, is, okay, if we have a really big crowd, which we do sometimes, we got the outfield berm out there. There's nobody that can't go if they want to go. Even if you have to stand on the other side of all that and get up on the hood of your car or something, or if you want to go across the street up to the high school and stand on that hill, you can watch a game. So it's not a matter of people not being, I guess if you want to sit in a nice seat, maybe that's difficult. But that to me, that's not the priority. You know, if you're a fan, you should want the athletes to have better facilities first. And honestly, their facilities aren't that good right now. Yeah, they definitely are due for an upgrade, them and soccer for sure. All right, Lamel Austin says Arkansas has had some great athletes in the long jump, triple jump, and high jump over the years, but rarely any shot or discus guys. I remember a guy named Scott Lofquist years ago. Now it looks like the Honks have another great run in Roger Stona. That dude looks like he is made of stone. Yeah, he's amazing. Yeah. And I do remember Scott Lofquist. He was quite a character. And I threw the discus in high school, and I was really bad at it, like 140 feet or something. It was pretty bad. This guy, I got to see him in the John McDonald Invitational. You made me go. I did. Go to track. I did send you to track. So I went out to track, and he's the first guy I shot. And I'm standing there, and I don't know him from squat. You know, he's a transfer from Clemson. He was pretty good last year, but he's upped his numbers this year already. He uncorks this first throw, and you know they got the shot put thing laid out. So here's the area where you turn, and here's the toe board. And then it's kind of goes out like that, and then there's an inline to it, right? He almost throws it past the area where it's supposed to land. I'm going, whoa, what's that all about? So I shoot some other stuff, and I come back, and he's in the finals, and he throws it farther than that. So it turned out he broke the record in the John McDonald Invitational with that first throw in the shot put. Then he set a new one in the finals. But I later found out that's not even his best event. It's the discus. And he goes to this thing in LSU. Now, at Clemson last year, his best throw in the discus was 213.3. And this thing the other day, he went 219.10. And that is the fourth best all time in college.
Wow.
And I don't know if he's coming back. It lists him as a redshirt junior / redshirt senior. I guess that's a COVID thing.
Yeah, depending on outdoor and indoor and how you compete, you can have eligibility in indoor left, but not in outdoor. So it sounds like he only has eligibility in indoor left.
So I don't know what's he's going to end up with at the NCAA's, but he's already set a record in the discus, a school record, and he'll probably improve on that. I like to see him go over 220.
That's cool.
That'd be nice.
Man,
he's a lot of fun to watch.
That's awesome. That's really cool. All right, Whippersnapper says, I don't like seeing Muss forcing home state guys into the portal. Ford had already announced he was coming back. Now he is gone. I'm scared this will start hurting our in-state recruiting.
Spent a long time on the phone with somebody that knows about all this stuff. And one of the things he said to me is that problem probably takes care of itself. And here's what he meant. We've seen now through this last year what we were talking about before, which is the impact of a 5-star top quality, maybe a one-and-done freshman, and what he contributes, as opposed to what a 3rd or 4th year or even a 5th year guy can do as a transfer that was pretty good also. Because those guys have experience that the others don't, and you're not even going to come close to getting the best of what that one-and-done will do. I just think, and you know, this could change year to year, but right now it looks like to me Musselman is going to recruit fewer freshmen. But when if Arkansas has a great in-state player, he's still going to go after the guy. Now, does this mean he might not get him? I don't think whoever that player would turn out to be would be somebody that goes, I'm not going to Arkansas because of what they did to Darian Ford. I don't see that happening. If he doesn't come, it'll be because he wants to go somewhere else anyway, and there are always those guys. So I don't really see that that's going to have a huge impact like that. It will have an impact on the Devo Davises in Arkansas.
That's my question.
There might be fewer of them.
What happens to these guys who are maybe 4 stars in the state who just, again, give them a year or two to develop? Is Arkansas no longer a developmental program? It's just a revolving door program of the best of what we have right now.
And all we can do is speculate because we don't really know. A Musselman was sitting here, he might tell us what he thinks, but we're speculating on what he might be thinking. And maybe I'm completely wrong about that. It may vary from year to year. I did ask, what's been the general reaction? He said that a lot of fans are mad around the state. And he hasn't had any coach tell him this is going to affect their recruiting. They haven't said that. There's just a lot of people angry about it. But this is what I say to those people. Do you remember what it was like from the day Nolan was fired until the day Musselman's hired? Do you remember that long period where what we really did as basketball fans is we went, gee, I hope we make the NCAA tournament. If we could just win a game, that would be really cool. You've got a guy right now going through 4 seasons. He's trying to win. He's legitimately trying to win a national championship. Hasn't happened, but do we think it won't? I don't. I think if he stays here long enough, he's going to win it. Mm-hmm. So what do you really want? Do you want that? Or do you want to sit around and nitpick the things that he does? Oh, he's mean and he's this and he didn't do that and that guy. I'm just telling you, here's what, I've been around fans my whole life. Started when I was a little kid, East Side Cafe in my hometown, and the men get in there and start talking. And they say one thing in the off season, everything changes during the season. Mm-hmm. During the season, whatever it takes to win, we got to win. Then when it's over, they start complaining about things that aren't complaints if you win. But then they become complaints between the season, out of season, and then not complaints again if you're winning.
So I'm going to play devil's advocate for a second because I agree with you and I understand that this is a business. The transfer portal has made it even more so. But is there a fine line between winning and still having a sense of loyalty to the people who commit to you, and where is that balance?
Yeah, I mean, it's a question to be asked for sure. But is it as big an issue as Nate Oates and what happened to him last year? I don't think so. I think that's where you start saying, wait a minute, at what price are you trying to win? This thing, the way it was put to me by somebody, and I agree with him, somebody very familiar with recruiting, he said, look, kid comes in here, we hope from the state, we hope he develops, but he doesn't do enough to play. Do we want to keep him here and have him sit on the bench and just say, well, he stayed here, we were loyal to him? Or are you really doing him a favor by saying, go somewhere else where you can play? You can't.
Yeah, I definitely think that there's that of, look, young man, I appreciate you, but if you want to get on the court, go here. You know, and we saw that with Desi Sills. We saw Desi go to Arkansas State and then have really great success at Kansas State, and a lot of Hog fans loved watching him do that. I think it's maybe the manner of which it feels, from a perspective standpoint, it's gone about. I've seen people make really good points on Twitter of, kind of to the point you're making, who has left to gone on and almost like burn Arkansas. Right. We don't have an example of one of those. But is it, you come to Arkansas knowing, we all know, Muss runs this much more like a business than anything else, and that's what you know going ahead. We are not in those meetings with Musselman and these freshmen, but it might say, here's what I can give you, but I also run this like a business, and it very much is a relationship between what's best for this team at this moment. I think we're not in a part of those conversations, so we don't know.
I think you just did Darian Ford a favor, because if he stayed here, he wouldn't play. Now he's going to go somewhere else where he'll get a shot, and he will be happier in the long. Even as much as he wanted to be a Razorback and all that, and I get that. Sometimes what you want, you get what you didn't think you wanted, but you end up realizing that's better in the first place. You just don't realize it at the time.
Yeah, I guess my whole, again, devil's advocate just goes back to, in hindsight, is there no such thing as developing anyone at Arkansas anymore?
That's different. That's a different thing.
We're just not developing people. We're just sending them on their merry way.
We saw what Devo did in beating Kansas. So maybe you don't have that. So I don't know. It's a delicate balance. Maybe you recruit one guy and try to keep him, like a Devo. I'm not sure.
I don't know. And Devos are rare. We get it. Like, again, he just, now, of course, Adrio Bailey, last 4-year guy to play at Arkansas. And unless Devo Davis comes back, I don't know when we're going to see one. So it just is the way that it is. But this basketball program has success. So you've got both sides of the sword there. All right. Marty Bird's proxy says, currently we don't know what Ron Holland's intentions are for next year. After decommitting from Texas, rumors were circulating that he would either go to the G League or be a Hog. With Muss's professional background and NIL, would a year here at the U of A prepare a player of his caliber as effectively as the G League?
I think it does, and I'll tell you why. Obviously, the level of competition is not going to be what it would be in the G League, because there, everybody's considered a professional. That's a top-level deal. However, here's what you miss when you don't go to college. You miss playing in front of 20,000 at Rupp, Arkansas and Kentucky, or 19,000 at Bud Walton, Arkansas and Kentucky, or Arkansas and Auburn. You miss those type of games, because the G League game, come on, there's not a huge crowd there. You're kind of doing it strictly on your own. And I think a part of preparing you for an NBA, you're now playing in the finals, in the playoffs, or whatever, and you got these huge crowds. What better prepares you for that? I think going to college does, because you've been in that situation before.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that they have to argue.
Yeah.
And so once again, what we're talking about here is, we go back to the subject that we just talked about. When Darian Ford left, most of us knew something was up. Now, what was that something? Well, it could be Walsh coming back, but they still had another spot open too. So to me, it said two things are happening. What are those two things? Well, I still think Devo, there's a chance he's coming back. I don't think Walsh is coming back, but Devo, I think he's coming back. That means what's going on elsewhere, and I think Ron Holland is the thing.
This is it.
I think that's it. And now you're talking about, he's a Walsh-type guy, but better than Walsh was. And now we're going to go through this again if he comes here. Is he the guy? because I don't think they're all the same. We were talking about, athletes make adjustment from one level to the next differently. I think we may have gotten a false impression last year of what this is like. I would like to see a 5-star guy like this come in. He's like the number 4 guy in the country. What if he comes in and tears it up? And he's a one and done, and you win a championship with him. Then everybody's going to change their attitude about a one and done.
It is what it is. And, going back to the point that this guy makes, I think for college basketball and college baseball, that the way that things are right now, you've added NIL to the mix, but facilities and competition and environment, and you got to go to class. That's like the caveat, the asterisk, go to class.
That's a biggie.
I think you could develop more as a player in 1 year of college or 2 years of college baseball than just going pro or just going to the G League.
Baseball players find that out all the time.
From facilities and all of that kind of stuff. I mean, you look at Dominic Fletcher, who just got caught up to the Diamondbacks, and the development of what he had here to quickly go through the minor league system. I just think NIL's got a lot to do with it, but if I'm a college or a high school athlete looking to make that decision, if I'm a first rounder in the MLB draft, I'm not turning down $6 million. But if I'm a mid guy and I can turn down $1 million to then go to college for 2 years and get $4 million, that's a smarter deal, and the facilities are really nice, and you're flying to things. You're not busting everywhere. You're not living in hotel rooms, and
wouldn't you like to see?
You just got to go to class.
Wouldn't you like to see one more year of Anthony Black? Wouldn't you have liked to have seen that?
Oh my gosh, that'd have been great.
That would have been great.
Yeah, I'd love to see another year of Nick Smith because we didn't really get one.
To find out if he's overrated.
We were talking about this with Dave today. Because they changed the date, the birth date for the draft, we could have had Caden Wallace one more year. Can you imagine Caden Wallace on this baseball team for one more year? But then they moved up that birth date, and it fell around him, and he got to go after 2 years. They thought they had him for 3. Then they changed the date on him.
Bozos.
You know?
Bozos.
I know.
Bozos.
I know. All right, we got one more page left. Ready? All right, Small Town Hog asks, can you think of a time football, basketball, and baseball all had so many key injuries in the same year? Is it bad luck? Are we cursed? Or is it something within their training?
No, it's bad luck. I've covered this athletic program for 47 full seasons going into 48 next year. This is the only time that's ever happened. That many key injuries in all 3 of those sports. So it's a random, rare thing. But it does happen. So what does this tell us about next year? Randomness should be back on our side. There should be almost no injuries in any of these things because we paid the price, right?
Yeah.
So, it's not. If it were something in training, the fact is they don't have the same trainers.
No.
And if it's a philosophy thing, they don't have the same coaches. It's just random.
Yeah.
It's weird.
It is. And, though, I mean, I'm not wishing injuries on people, but I'd take this over covering Chad Morris any day. So I do not care. That was awful.
You can deal with these problems as opposed to
hey,
major.
At least they're winning.
No more Western Kentucky games.
No more Portland State. I don't need no more Colorado State in my life. That was way too stressful for all of us. All right, last question. Lanny says, name the one athlete that had the biggest impact on you as a kid.
You know, if you ask most people that question, they're going to say a Michael Jordan or a Muhammad Ali or somebody that everybody knows.
Yeah.
I got to be honest. That's what I do on the show. I'm honest. The guy I would pick is somebody nobody has ever heard of outside of my hometown.
That's very fitting.
His name is Eddie Thompson.
Okay.
So who was Eddie Thompson? When I was in the 4th grade, he was a running back. Now, when I was in the 2nd grade, we had a bad football team. When I was in the 3rd grade, we had a bad football. Everybody was in a bad mood. We'd given up on football. 4th grade, we get a new coach, Bernard, V-E-R-N-A-R-D, pronounced Bernard Alexander. He kind of did what Bowden Wyatt did with the 25 Little Pigs. He came in and he ran off everybody in 2-a-days. They had 13 players. Everybody else quit. That's 11 guys that went both ways. That means you play a position on offense and defense. 11 guys and 2 reserves. So if he got 3 injuries, they'd be in, what would you do? So the first game of the year, we're playing Seagraves, and Seagraves had beaten us 60-0 the year before. This game is now played at Seagraves because they beat us bad on our own field. My dad goes to the game because he runs the newspaper and he's got to write a game story. So we go over there, and it's a driving rainstorm. I got my little slicker on. My mom made sure I had the little yellow thing with the deal on the head, and and rain's just falling off of you. And I stand there in the rain, and I watched us beat them 13-7, and nobody could believe it. They couldn't believe it. How did this happen? So now everybody's all excited. Everybody now wants to say, oh, and all these guys want to come back. And so they go, Coach, could we come back and be on the team? And he just says, okay, I'll let the players decide. And they say, okay, you can come back. So all of a sudden they got like 30 guys instead of 11. But the fans are all excited. So now we're playing Muleshoe in the second game, and it's at home. And Muleshoe is like our Texas and Arkansas. We're like Arkansas. Muleshoe is like Texas. They beat us most of the time because they're a bigger school, 3A, we're 2A, and they have better athletes. But we got Eddie Thompson. And Eddie Thompson was a guy, when he walked into the cafeteria, you just looked at him and you knew you wanted to be like him. We used to have these fights that the high school guys would fight at the caliche pit if they got mad at you. The caliche pit, caliche is a material you dig out of the ground out in West Texas, and when you don't have enough money to pave your streets, you just put it on the streets and it makes them better to drive on. So they dig this big hole, it's about 20 feet deep out there, and it's like 4 or 5 acres, and guys would go out there and fight because nobody would see it, because if you drove by, you can't see 20 feet down.
Sure.
So they have the big fights.
How do you get down there? Like a ramp?
A little road goes down there for them to scoop it out.
Makes sense.
So, and this was this way years later when I was in high school, if you decide to have a fight, you got to go out there and fight. If you back down, you're a wing row and nobody likes you. From that point on, you're just marked. You're a dope. This guy gets into it with Eddie Thompson. He goes out there. Now, I wasn't there. I just had people. It was a story that went on for years.
Okay.
He walks up, Eddie Thompson's standing there like, okay. He looks at him, turns around and walks off. He's not fighting this guy because he's the meanest guy you've ever seen. He wasn't an ugly guy, although he wore these thick Buddy Holly glasses, which made him cool, but he was you just looked at him and he looked tough. So we're playing Muleshoe.
Got it.
0-0 ball game. And now Muleshoe, they'd made a statement in the newspaper the week before. Seagraves, they overlooked Morton. We're not going to do that. So now it's a 0-0 game. It's defense. So in the fourth quarter, Morton's going south to north. So I go and I'm standing on the north end of the field. There's no fence around our field. You can just stand there right close to the sidelines. And I go park myself kind of at the corner of the northwest part of the end zone, and I say to myself, okay, they're coming to me. They're going to come this way. And I'm waiting for it to happen. And sure enough, with 2 minutes to go, we cross the 50. And I'm thinking, all right. And we're coming, and it's Eddie Thompson right, Eddie Thompson left, Eddie Thompson off tackle. They get to the 7-yard line. It's 2nd and goal from the 7, 43 seconds. The stupid clock down there on the other end is one of those dial clocks. It's not digital. It's got like a clock, and there's 43 seconds left. They call timeout. They have a big powwow. I'm all excited. I'm standing there. And they call a sweep. So the quarterback takes the ball and pitches it to Eddie Thompson. He's the trailing back. Pitches it back to him. So you got a quarterback blocking for him. You got the lead halfback blocking for him. You got the fullback blocking for him. You got a tight end on one side blocking for him. So you got all these guys blocking. Here comes the defense. It's like a pinball game. Bing, 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 guys trying to block. And I'm watching Eddie, and he's going here and there and there, and he looks like he's going to cut back this way, and then there's this little tunnel, and I'm looking right at the tunnel, and here he comes, right at me. And I think he's going to score. And then out of nowhere come these 2 helmets, pow, pow. He gets hit, double hit on top. It would be like targeting now, but it's a double targeting. 2 guys hit him in the helmet right here. But his helmet was a little bit above their helmets. And he goes up over the top of them, and there's just enough momentum that he reaches out with that football and touches the little flag that's right at the corner. It's not like a pylon now. It was those little metal thing that screwed into the ground, and it was flexible, had a little flag on it, but he touched it and it moved. And I realized at that moment, I didn't know what that meant. Is he out of bounds? Is it a touchdown? And then the ref signaled touchdown. And I'm like, we won. He did it. And I'm going nuts. And then I look down, and he's flat on the ground, face down on the ground. And his teammates run up, and they know, so they turn him over. And I'm standing 3 feet away looking at him. He's knocked out. There's nothing there. I'm like, this guy's knocked out. How did he do that? How do you stick the football out there when you've been hitting the head so hard that it knocks you out? I didn't know. So here comes Dr. Monk from the sidelines. He got his little black bag. Dr. Monk took my appendix out. I knew who he was. So here he comes, and he's got the black bag. Opens it up, takes what used to be called an ammonia capsule, pops it, sticks it in his nose. Shakes a little bit, but he's still not up. Takes another one, sticks it in the other nose. Now he's awake. Teammates come and they grab him. You got one on each shoulder, and they're going to walk him off the field. Not going to carry him. He's going to walk off. He takes about 3 steps, looks at them, shakes them off, and trots off the field. I'm thinking to myself, I can't ever be him, but I can try to be like him, because he just did something that's not possible. He somehow scored a touchdown when he was knocked out. How did he do that? Wow. And I've had that attitude ever since then.
Wow.
No matter how hard something is, if he can do that, you can try to do that. You can try to be Eddie Thompson.
I love it.
And he's amazing. And I don't know what, a guy looked him up years ago, and he said he didn't even remember that game.
Aww.
He didn't care. He doesn't like football as an adult, whatever. I don't care. I only know what he was then.
Yeah.
He was a hero to me.
Yeah. And this is why I love you, because you remember stuff like that. But where's your cell phone? You don't remember your cell phone half the time.
No, I can't find it. I think it's over there, but it might not be.
This is why I love you. All right. Great pack of questions.
Okay.
All right. That's going to do it for this week's Ask Mike. We'll see you back here next week.